Chapter 8. The Hunting Forest. The gate to floor 3 opened slowly. Cold air poured through the stone corridor beyond it. No one moved at first. The players who had survived the previous floors stood in uneasy silence, staring into the darkness ahead. The hallway beyond the gate was narrow and dim. Torches burned along the walls, casting long shadows across the stone. Someone behind Yuna whispered, "Another dungeon." No one sounded excited this time. Floor 1 had been chaos. Floor 2 had nearly killed them. Everyone understood the truth now. The tower was not a game. It was a filter, and most people would not survive it. Yuna stepped forward first. Her twin spirit blades rested quietly in her hands. Jin followed a few steps behind her, silent as always. The rest of the survivors slowly began moving as well. Only about 20 people remained from the original entrance chamber. The others had died along the way. The corridor stretched forward for several minutes before finally opening into a wide stone doorway. Beyond it waited something completely different, a forest, but not a normal one. The sky above the trees glowed a dim purple twilight. Thick fog crawled across the forest floor like slow-moving smoke. Massive black trees rose high into the darkness. The branches twisted together so tightly that very little light reached the ground. The entire forest felt wrong, unnatural. Yuna stepped across the threshold. The moment her foot touched the soil, a voice echoed in her mind. System message. Floor 3 reached. Dungeon type, hunting forest. Survive until the exit gate appears. The message vanished. For a moment, nothing happened. The players looked around nervously. Survive? Someone muttered. That's it? No objective, no enemies, just a silent forest. The fog shifted slowly between the trees. A branch cracked somewhere in the distance. Everyone froze. Then the forest exploded into chaos. Something lunged from the fog. A black shape slammed into one of the players near the back of the group. The man screamed as claws ripped across his chest. Blood sprayed across the ground. Monsters! More shapes emerged from the darkness. Wolf-like creatures with glowing yellow eyes burst out from between the trees. Stalker wolves. They moved like shadows. Fast, silent, deadly. Players scattered instantly. Weapons clashed. Screams echoed through the forest. Yuna moved before the panic spread further. Her blades flashed. One wolf lunged toward her. She stepped sideways and cut through its neck in one smooth strike. The monster collapsed in the fog. Another wolf circled behind her. Jin's sword cut it down before it could attack. He didn't say a word. More monsters appeared deeper in the forest. The fog shifted as shapes moved through it. Too many. This floor wasn't a simple fight. It was a hunt, and the players were the prey. A man nearby shouted, "Run!" Half the survivors fled deeper into the forest. Yuna clenched her jaw. Running blindly would only make things worse. But it was already too late. Another scream echoed through the trees. Then another. The forest swallowed the sound. Yuna scanned the darkness quickly. Movement everywhere. The monsters were circling, watching, waiting. Then she heard something else. A voice. "Stay still, I'm trying." It came from deeper inside the fog. Yuna turned toward the sound. Through the mist, she saw a small group of players gathered near the base of a large tree. One man lay on the ground. Blood soaked his armor. Kneeling beside him was a young woman. Golden light glowed from her hands. Healing magic. "Just hold on," she said desperately. "I almost have it." The wounded man gasped for air. His breathing was uneven. Too much blood. Yuna's steps slowed. The scene triggered a memory. A ruined street. Flames burning across the sky. Lily standing in the middle of chaos, healing injured civilians while monsters closed in. The same determined expression, the same desperate hope. The healer, Lily Aoki. The wound on his chest slowly began to close. For one brief moment it looked like the healing might work. Then the man's body went still. The light faded. His eyes stared upward. Empty. The girl froze. "No," her voice cracked. "No, wait, I can still—" The forest moved. 3 shadows burst from the fog behind her. Stalker wolves. They lunged. The girl didn't even see them. Yuna moved. Her blade flashed. The first wolf dropped before it touched the ground. Jin appeared beside her. His sword cut through the second monster in a clean arc. The third wolf leapt toward the healer. Jin's blade pierced it in midair. The creature collapsed at her feet. Silence returned for a moment. The girl stared at the dead monsters, then slowly looked down at the man she had tried to save. I almost... Her voice faded. Yuna felt it then, a sudden pressure inside her mind. Not a full vision this time, just fragments, a child laughing, a photograph held in trembling hands, a quiet voice in the dark. I thought I had more time. The echoes vanished instantly. Yuna inhaled sharply. Her chest tightened. Death memory. It was happening again. But now the memories came in pieces, sharper, faster, more painful. The girl lowered her head. Her shoulders trembled. I was too slow. Yuna studied her quietly. She recognized that expression. Determination mixed with guilt. The same look Lily had always worn, even in the previous timeline, even on the day she died. More movement shifted in the fog. Jin glanced toward the trees. They're still here. His sword rested loosely in his hand. Calm. Waiting. The forest answered him. Branches rustled, leaves shifted, shapes moved between the trunks. Yuna turned slowly. Yellow eyes opened in the fog. One pair, then another, then another. Dozens. The pack had surrounded them. The healer stiffened. Her voice came out small. That's a lot. Jin rolled his shoulders slightly. Yeah. He didn't sound concerned. Yuna stepped forward. Her blades rose. The fog thickened as the monsters began to move. Slow. Patient. The hunt wasn't over. It had only just begun. Jin glanced sideways at Yuna. You planning to keep her alive? Yuna didn't hesitate. Yes. The healer looked up in surprise. Yuna extended a hand. Stay behind us. After a moment, the girl took it. The wolves began circling closer. Growls rumbled through the twilight forest. Jin lifted his sword. Well, his voice remained perfectly calm. Looks like we found the main pack. The fog shifted again, and deeper within the forest, something much larger moved between the trees. The wolves suddenly stopped growling, as if waiting. Yuna's eyes narrowed. Whatever was coming, it wasn't just another monster, and it was getting closer. Chapter 9. The Alpha of the Hunt. A scream echoed through the forest. Yuna stopped instantly. The fog between the trees parted as something huge moved in the darkness. A man stumbled backward across the wet leaves. Help! The creature struck before anyone reached him. Claws flashed. The man crashed to the ground. Blood spread across the forest floor. The wolves surrounding the survivors lowered their heads. Something larger emerged from the fog. Yuna's eyes narrowed. A massive black wolf, nearly the size of a truck. Black fur blended perfectly with the twilight shadows between the trees. Its silver eyes glowed faintly in the twilight. Nightfang Alpha, the leader of the hunt. No one spoke. The remaining climbers slowly backed together. Yuna counted them quickly. 13 survivors. The alpha lowered its head. The wolves around them began circling again, waiting. Jin rested his sword on his shoulder. "Well," he said calmly, "that explains the pack." Yuna kept her eyes on the alpha. "Everyone stay together." The survivors obeyed immediately. They had already seen what happened when someone fought alone. A low growl broke the silence. The alpha stepped forward. The wolves followed. The hunt resumed. "Here they come," someone shouted. The pack attacked. Wolves rushed from the fog. Claws and fangs flashed through the twilight forest. "Tanks to the front," Yuna shouted. "Anyone with ranged skills, spread out but stay behind the tanks." A man raised a shaking hand. "I have beast sense." "Good," Yuna said. "Tell us if it moves." The alpha growled softly, as if it understood the plan forming around it. Then it moved. The monster vanished. The beast sense player shouted immediately, "Left!" A dark blur shot through the fog. Jin moved first. His sword cut through a wolf mid-leap. Yuna stepped forward beside him. Her twin blades flashed through another monster. Behind them, Lily raised her hands. Golden light spread across a wounded climber's shoulder. "Hold still!" The wolves kept coming. Then the alpha vanished. One of the climbers shouted, "It disappeared!" Yuna's eyes scanned the fog. "Behind us!" the beast sense player shouted. The alpha exploded from the shadows. Its massive body slammed into a man near the edge of the group. The impact knocked him to the ground. The alpha's jaws closed around his chest. The man screamed once, then the sound stopped. Yuna froze for half a second. She waited. The vision should come. The memory. The final thoughts. But nothing happened. No images. No voices. Only silence. Yuna frowned. Why didn't it trigger? A faint blue message flickered across her vision. Memory fragment conditions not met. The words vanished before she could react. The alpha roared again. The battle resumed. Yuna forced the question aside. She stepped forward and cut across the alpha's shoulder. The massive wolf twisted away with surprising speed. Jin attacked from the opposite side. His blade struck the monster's flank. The alpha retreated a few steps. Silver eyes locked onto Yuna. It had chosen its target. The wolves surged forward again. Yuna raised her blades. "Focus the alpha!" The surviving climbers pressed closer together. Wolves attacked from every direction. Steel flashed through the fog. Lily moved constantly through the group, healing anyone who fell. "Stay with me," she told an injured woman. The alpha lunged again. Jin intercepted it. His sword clashed against the monster's claws. Sparks burst into the twilight air. The two separated. Yuna moved in immediately. Her blades cut across the alpha's chest. Black blood splashed across the leaves. The pack hesitated. Their leader was wounded. The alpha roared. Then it attacked again. This time Yuna and Jin moved together. Jin forced the monster backward. Yuna struck the exposed opening. The alpha staggered. One of the surviving climbers shouted, "Now!" Arrows flew from behind them. The alpha howled as the arrows struck its side. Jin stepped forward. His sword rose. A faint red glow flickered along the blade. Dragon energy. The alpha lunged one final time. Jin's sword fell. The strike cut through the monster's neck. The alpha collapsed heavily onto the forest floor. For several seconds, the forest was silent. Then, the remaining wolves slowly retreated into the fog. The hunt was over. The survivors stood still, breathing heavily. A calm voice echoed inside their minds. System message. Floor 3 cleared. Exit gate available. Yuna watched the forest quietly. Her thoughts returned to the moment earlier. A man had died, but death memory had not triggered. The system message replayed in her mind. Memory fragment conditions not met, which meant the ability had rules she still didn't understand. A tall stone arch appeared between the trees ahead. Soft blue light shimmered within it. The survivors stared at the gate. Relief spread through the group. Lily moved quickly between the injured players, healing cuts and claw wounds. Her hands glowed softly. One of the survivors sat heavily against a tree, clutching his side. "I swear," he muttered, "if the next floor has more wolves, I'm turning around." A few tired laughs followed. Another player looked around the clearing. "How many of us are left?" 13, someone answered. The man frowned. "My group had more than that." Lily glanced up. "How many?" 30. She hesitated, then added quietly, "We started in a different chamber." Several players looked toward her. "Different chamber?" Lily nodded. "When we first entered the tower, there were about 200 people in our room." The survivors exchanged uneasy looks. "So there are multiple starting rooms?" "Looks like it." "Then how many players started climbing this thing?" No one had an answer. Yuna remained silent. None of this surprised her. The tower had never been a single path. Jin leaned casually against a tree. His eyes moved briefly toward Yuna. "Interesting," he said. She ignored him. After a moment, Lily approached her. The healer looked nervous but determined. "If I try climbing alone," she said quietly, "I won't be able to save anyone." She looked down at her hands. "I'm not strong enough yet." Then she lifted her head. "Can I stay with you?" Yuna did not hesitate. "Yes." Lily's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Thank you." Jin pushed himself away from the tree. His gaze moved toward the glowing gate ahead. "Good timing." He rested his sword across his shoulder. "Because something tells me the next floor won't be any easier." The survivors slowly gathered their weapons. One by one, they walked toward the glowing gate. Yuna stepped through first. The blue light swallowed her. Floor 4 waited beyond, and deeper inside the tower. The real climb was only beginning. Chapter 10. Ruins of the 4th floor. The blue light of the gate faded. Yuna stepped forward. The world rebuilt itself around her. Stone streets stretched into the distance. Broken towers leaned against the dark sky. Cracked walls and collapsed houses filled the horizon. An ancient city, silent. Dust drifted through the air. The survivors from floor 3 slowly appeared behind her. Someone whispered, "Where are we now?" A faint voice answered inside their minds. System message. Floor 4 reached. Dungeon type, ruined city. Objective. Destroy 3 gargoyle nests. The message faded. For several seconds, nothing happened. The streets remained still. Then someone pointed upward. "Hey!" The rooftops were lined with statues, dozens of them. Stone creatures crouched along towers and walls. Wings folded tightly against their backs. Gargoyles. They looked old, weathered by centuries of wind and rain. One player laughed nervously. "They're just statues." Another player walked closer to one perched on a broken fountain. He reached out and tapped it with his sword. The stone cracked. A sharp sound echoed through the square. The statue's head turned. Stone eyes opened. The gargoyle screamed. Its wings spread wide as pieces of rock shattered from its body. More statues across the rooftops began to move. Cracks raced through their stone skin. One by one, the gargoyles awakened. Monsters! Players scattered as the creatures launched themselves into the air. A gargoyle dove toward the street. Yuna stepped forward. Her blade cut upward. The creature split in half before it reached the ground. Stone fragments scattered across the street. "Watch the rooftops," she said quickly. More gargoyles leapt from the towers. Jin moved beside her. His sword flashed once. Another monster crashed into the pavement. The survivors regrouped instinctively. "Archers!" Yuna called out. "Take the roofs!" A man raised his bow. "I can hit them from here." Arrows streaked upward. 2 gargoyles fell from the sky. Others dove toward the group. Steel clashed against stone wings. The narrow streets forced everyone to stay close together. A woman shouted, "There's more up there!" She pointed toward the tallest tower in the square. At the top of the structure sat a cluster of gargoyles. Dozens of them. Their bodies were gathered around a nest built from broken stone. Yuna glanced upward. "That's one of them." The gargoyle nests. Destroy the nests, clear the floor. Simple objective. Dangerous execution. Another player spoke. "There are 2 more towers down that street." He pointed toward a collapsed gate further into the city. "Probably more nests there." Yuna nodded. "Then we move together." No one argued. The group began advancing through the ruined streets. The gargoyles followed them from above. Every time they passed a new building, more statues awakened. Stone wings filled the sky. Jin cut down anything that got too close. Lily stayed behind the fighters, healing anyone who took a hit. "Hold still," she told a wounded man. "Just a second." Golden light sealed the cut on his arm. The group pushed deeper into the city. More climbers began following Yuna's directions. "Left alley," she called. "Stay under the walls." Players listened. Someone muttered, "Just follow the twin blade girl." Yuna pretended not to hear. They reached the base of the first tower. The gargoyle nest sat high above them. Stone creatures crawled across the walls. One climber looked up. "I can climb that." "Be careful," Lily said. The man nodded. He started scaling the cracked stones. The rest of the group fought off the gargoyles circling above. Yuna kept watching the climber. Halfway up the tower, one of the statues moved. A gargoyle opened its wings and lunged. The man slipped. For a moment, he tried to grab the wall. Then he fell. The impact echoed through the street. His body did not move. Yuna froze. A sharp pressure struck her mind. Fragments burst through her thoughts. A warm kitchen. Someone laughing across a table. A hand gripping a climbing rope. A voice whispering, "Just one more job." The echoes shattered. System message. Memory fragment recorded. Current fragments. 3. Yuna inhaled sharply. Pain pulsed behind her eyes. Then another message appeared. System message. Memory resonance detected. Spirit blades temporarily strengthened. Her weapons vibrated softly. A pale glow spread along their edges. Yuna stared at them for a moment. Then a gargoyle dropped toward her. She moved. Her blade cut across its chest. The creature split apart instantly. Stone armor that should have resisted the strike, shattered like glass. Yuna blinked. The glow faded a few seconds later. The power vanished. The street filled with the sounds of battle again. Jin glanced briefly toward her blades. His expression did not change. He said nothing. Yuna pushed the strange sensation aside. "Bring it down," she called. 2 climbers climbed the tower together. This time the others covered them. Arrows and spells forced the gargoyles back. The climbers reached the nest. One of them smashed the stone structure with a hammer. The nest collapsed. The gargoyles in the sky suddenly shrieked. Several of them turned to dust. System message. First gargoyle nest destroyed. 2 nests remaining. The group advanced through the ruined streets again. Fewer gargoyles attacked now. The second nest fell quickly. By the time they reached the 3rd tower, the monsters were already weakening. Jin climbed the final structure himself. One powerful strike shattered the nest. Stone fragments rained across the square. The remaining gargoyles crumbled where they stood. The city became quiet. System message. Floor 4 cleared. A glowing doorway appeared at the end of the street. Relief spread across the group. Players lowered their weapons. The survivors stepped through the gate. Chapter 11. Banners of War. The chamber was quiet. A safe room between floors. For the first time since the ruined city, the survivors could breathe. Stone benches lined the walls. Torches burned with steady light. Everyone relaxed slightly. Lily immediately began treating the wounded. "Next," she said gently. A man sat down beside her and extended his arm. Lily finished treating another injured climber. Her hands were shaking slightly. Yuna noticed. "You're exhausted," Yuna said. Lily smiled anyway. "It's fine. They need it more." Yuna looked at the long line of injured players waiting. "You don't have to heal everyone." Lily shook her head. "If I can help them survive the next floor, it's worth it." She paused for a moment, then added quietly, "I don't want anyone else to die if I can stop it." Yuna didn't answer, because in the previous timeline, Lily died trying to do exactly that. The atmosphere felt different here. Yuna studied the chamber while Lily worked. Stone walls, torches burning steadily, a resting chamber between floors. Players were talking in small groups, arguing, guessing what the next floor might be. One of them finally looked toward Yuna. "You got us through the last floor," another nodded. "And the wolves?" The man hesitated, then asked, "What do you think the next dungeon is?" Yuna blinked. She had not realized they were waiting for her answer. Jin leaned against the wall nearby, watching silently. Yuna thought for a moment. "If the tower gave us a safe room first," she said, "the next floor will probably require coordination." Someone frowned. "Coordination?" Yuna nodded. "More than just fighting." The room grew quiet. Several climbers exchanged glances. One of them muttered, "Just listen to the twin blade girl." One player approached Yuna. "You planning to start a team?" Yuna shook her head. "We're just climbing." The man shrugged and walked away. Jin leaned against the wall nearby. "You're building a following." Yuna ignored the comment. The next gate opened with a low rumble. Blue lights spilled across the safe room floor. Players slowly stood. Weapons were lifted again. Someone muttered, "Here we go." Yuna stepped through the gate. The world shifted. Wind swept across her face. The ground beneath her boots was dry soil mixed with old ash. When the light faded, she saw the battlefield. Broken spears stuck out of the earth. Rusting helmets lay scattered between cracked stones. Fragments of shields were half buried in the dirt. The remains of an ancient war. Far across the field, 3 tall banners rose into the air. Each one marked a different ruin. A crumbling watchtower, a deep trench line, and a shattered fortress wall. A voice echoed in every climber's mind. System message. Floor 5 reached. Objective: capture 3 war banners. Capture synchronization required. The message faded. Several players frowned. What does synchronization mean? A skeleton warrior climbed slowly out of the dirt nearby, then another, then dozens. Bone soldiers pulled themselves from the ground all across the battlefield. Yuna studied the terrain quickly. 3 banners, 3 locations, 1 problem. If one banner falls too early, it probably resets, she said. A man nearby nodded slowly. That sounds like something the tower would do. Another player asked, "So we need to take them at the same time?" Yuna looked across the battlefield again. The tower was surrounded by skeletal archers. The trench was filled with bone knights, and the ruined wall held a dark floating figure, a wraith commander. She turned to the gathered climbers. 3 groups. Some players hesitated. Others waited. Yuna pointed toward the watchtower. "Climbers and archers take the tower." Then she gestured toward the trench. "Shield fighters take the trench." Finally, she looked toward the ruined wall. "The strongest fighters come with me." Someone muttered quietly, "She got us through the city." Another climber nodded. "Listen to her." The groups began forming. Lily stepped forward. "I'll move between teams," she said. "If someone gets hurt, call for me." Yuna nodded once. Across the battlefield, the undead were already moving. Skeletons marched slowly toward the living. Jin glanced at Yuna. "You're building an army." Yuna shook her head. "I'm trying to keep them alive." Jin rested his sword against his shoulder. "Same difference." A runner from the tower team raised a hand. "Ready." Another voice shouted from the trench. "Ready here." Yuna looked toward the ruined wall. The wraith hovered above the broken stone, its dark cloak drifting in the wind. She raised her blade. "Now!" The battlefield erupted. Archers sprinted toward the watchtower. Skeleton arrows rained down as climbers rushed the stairs. In the trench, shield fighters crashed into bone knights. Steel struck bone in tight, brutal combat. Yuna and Jin moved toward the broken wall. The wraith shrieked as they approached. More skeleton guards surged forward. Jin cut through the first 2 with a single sweep of his blade. Yuna followed, striking down another. Above them, the wraith raised its hands. Dark energy gathered in the air. A climber shouted from the tower. "Banner almost down!" Another voice came from the trench. "Hold! Not yet!" Yuna looked up at the wraith. "Finish it!" Jin nodded once. He leapt onto the broken wall. The wraith lunged toward him. His sword flashed. The spirit split apart with a piercing scream. At the same moment, 3 shouts echoed across the battlefield. "Tower ready!" "Trench ready!" Yuna drove her blade through the final skeleton guard. "Take them!" Across the battlefield, 3 banners were pulled free at the same time. Blue light burst from each location. The wind across the battlefield suddenly died. The remaining skeletons collapsed into dust. A calm voice spoke again. "System message. All war banners captured. Floor 5 cleared. Gate to floor 6 unlocked." A new gate appeared at the far end of the battlefield. The surviving climbers slowly gathered again. Some leaned on their weapons, others sat down in the dirt. Lily moved through the crowd, healing the injured. A man looked around the field, then frowned. "Wait." He pointed toward the far side of the ruins. More climbers were walking across the battlefield. Groups Yuna had never seen before. Different armor, different weapons. One of the survivors whispered, "Where did they come from?" Another answered, quietly, "Another path through the tower." Yuna watched the unfamiliar groups carefully. The tower was bigger than they thought, and now all those paths were beginning to cross. Ahead of them, the gate to the next floor waited in silence. Chapter 12: The Rising Ruins. Cold water touched Yuna's boots the moment she stepped through the gate. The blue light faded behind her. She looked down. Water covered the stone floor of the chamber. Ancient pillars rose from the flood like broken teeth. Half-collapsed staircases led upward along the ruined walls. The air smelled damp and stale. More climbers appeared behind her. Someone groaned. A water dungeon? Another player splashed forward and frowned. The water already reached his knees. A calm voice echoed in their minds. System message. Floor 6 reached. Dungeon type, sunken ruins. Warning. Water level rising. Primary objective. Reach the upper ruins. The message vanished. For a moment, the ruins were quiet except for the slow dripping of water from the ceiling. Lily looked around nervously. The water is going to keep rising? Yuna nodded. Yes. She scanned the ruins quickly. The architecture was layered vertically. Lower halls already flooded. Upper platforms still dry. If the water continued rising, the lower floors would disappear entirely. We climb, Yuna said. The group began moving through the flooded ruins. Each step was slow. Armor dragged through the water. Weapons splashed with every movement. Behind them, more climbers from other routes entered the dungeon. Soon, dozens of survivors were moving through the ancient ruin together. The water slowly rose, from knees to thighs. Then, nearly to their waists, someone cursed. This place is going to drown us. Something moved beneath the surface. Yuna stopped walking. The ripples were wrong, too fast. Careful, she said. A scream cut through the chamber. A man near the back was dragged under the water. The surface exploded upward. A massive serpent burst from the flood. Its long body twisted through the ruins like a living river. More shapes moved beneath the water. Serpents. Players scattered. Jin's sword flashed. The blade struck the serpent as it lunged again. The monster recoiled with a violent hiss. Another serpent surged upward nearby. The flooded ruins erupted into chaos. Fighting in deep water was slow. Every movement heavy, every step unstable. But the serpents moved effortlessly. One creature struck a climber near the stairs. The man collapsed into the water. Blood spread across the surface. Lily reacted instantly. "Hold still!" She splashed toward him. Golden light gathered around her hands. Healing magic closed the wound slowly. The man gasped as the bleeding stopped. "You're okay," Lily said softly. Then the water behind her exploded. A much larger serpent erupted upward. Its jaws opened wide. Lily slipped in the rising water. For a moment, she could not move. Yuna turned, but something crashed into the flood first. A massive shield slammed between Lily and the monster. Water exploded outward. The serpent's jaws struck the shield with a thunderous crash. A voice shouted over the splash. "Hey! Pick on someone your own size!" The man behind the shield grinned. "You almost ate the healer." He planted his feet in the water and shoved the serpent back. Behind him, 2 climbers appeared. A nervous archer and a young fighter. "Diego!" the archer shouted. "That thing is huge." The man laughed. "Relax." He lifted the shield again. "I've seen worse." He glanced back at Lily. "You all right?" She nodded quickly. Yes." He smiled. "Good." Then he turned back toward the serpent. "Because you're not becoming snake food today." For a moment, Yuna forgot the rising water. Diego. In the previous timeline, she had watched this man stand against monsters far stronger than this, always smiling, always protecting the people behind him, until the day he died buying them time. But now, he stood here again, alive. The serpent lunged again. Diego braced behind his shield. "Stay behind me!" The monster crashed into the metal wall. Jin moved instantly, his sword carved across the serpent's neck. Yuna stepped in from the side and struck the exposed scales. Lily's healing light spread across Diego's armor as the serpent's tail whipped through the water. For a moment, the battle moved perfectly. Shield, blade, strike, heal. The rhythm felt natural, too natural. Yuna realized it suddenly. This was how they had fought in the last timeline. The memory lasted only a second. Then the serpent roared and twisted violently. Jin leapt onto a broken pillar and drove his blade downward. Yuna followed with another strike. Diego slammed his shield forward. The monster collapsed into the water with a final hiss. The remaining serpents retreated deeper into the ruins. Silence slowly returned. Water continued rising around their waists. Diego rested the shield against the stone floor. "Well," he said, "that woke me up." The archer behind him laughed nervously. "You call that waking up?" Diego shrugged. "Better than drowning." Then he looked at Yuna and Jin. "You two fight pretty well." Yuna studied him quietly, still loud, still fearless, still protecting everyone around him without hesitation, just like before. Diego glanced at Lily again. "You sure you're okay?" She nodded. "Thank you." He waved a hand casually. "No problem." Then he looked around the flooded ruins. "All right." He raised his shield again. "Everyone move. Water's getting higher." Yuna pointed toward a staircase climbing along the wall. "Upper level." The survivors began climbing. Diego stayed near the back with his small group. Shield ready, watching the water, watching the slower climbers, protecting them naturally, because that was exactly how he always fought. The staircase led them to a higher platform overlooking the flooded ruins. The lower halls were already gone beneath the water. Ripples spread slowly across the surface. Something moved far below. Ahead of them stood the entrance to a massive submerged temple. Half of the structure was underwater. Ancient statues lined the stairs descending into the dark flood. Jin stared into the water. "Something big is down there." The ruins fell silent. Even the dripping water seemed to stop. Then the system spoke again. System message. Large elite enemy approaching. The water bulged upward. Something enormous shifted beneath the temple ruins. The flooded chamber trembled. And the next fight was coming. Chapter 13. The Elite. Beneath the temple, the water trembled. Ripples spread across the flooded ruins as something enormous moved beneath the surface. The survivors stood along the broken temple platform, weapons raised. No one spoke. Then the system message appeared. System message. Elite monster detected. Drowned Leviathan awakened. The water bulged upward. For a moment, it looked like the flooded chamber was breathing. Then the surface exploded. A massive serpent burst from the temple pool. Its body was enormous, easily the length of a city bus. Ancient bronze chains hung from sections of its armored scales, clattering as it moved. Barnacles and broken temple fragments clung to its body like scars from centuries underwater. Blue cracks glowed faintly along its scales. Its eyes burned with cold light. The drowned Leviathan had awakened. Several climbers immediately stepped back. "That's not normal," someone shouted. The Leviathan roared and surged forward. The water around the platform erupted. Players scrambled to avoid the first strike. The creature's massive body slammed into a broken pillar. Stone shattered as the ruins shook. Yuna's eyes narrowed. Spread out! The Leviathan lunged again. Its jaws snapped toward a group of climbers near the stairs. Diego moved first. His tower shield slammed into the stone floor. Behind me! The monster crashed into the shield. Metal rang like a bell. Water exploded across the platform. Diego's boots slid several inches across the wet stone. "Okay," he shouted. "That's a big one." Jin moved before the monster could recoil. His sword flashed across the Leviathan's neck. Sparks burst as the blade scraped against armored scales. The creature hissed and twisted away. Yuna darted forward from the opposite side. Her twin blades struck the creature's flank. The impact barely pierced the armor, too thick. The Leviathan's tail whipped across the platform. A wave of water slammed into the climbers. Several people lost their footing. One man nearly fell into the flooded chamber. "Careful!" Lily shouted. Golden light spread from her hands as she healed a wounded player. The Leviathan suddenly vanished beneath the water. The chamber grew quiet. Only ripples remained. Jin stepped closer to the edge of the platform. "It's diving." The water surface shifted. A ripple raced across the flooded temple. Then the Leviathan erupted from the opposite side. The monster lunged straight toward Lily. Yuna moved instantly, but Diego was faster. His shield rose again. The Leviathan slammed into it with terrifying force. The impact shook the entire platform. Diego grunted as his boots slid backward through the water. "Little help!" he called. Jin stepped in beside him, his sword carved across the monster's jaw. Yuna struck at the same moment from the other side. The Leviathan twisted violently. Water surged across the stone platform again. Yuna watched the creature carefully. Something flickered beneath its throat, a faint blue glow. "Wait," she said. The Leviathan pulled back and dove again. The ripples spread across the water. Jin wiped water from his face. "You see something?" "There's a core," Yuna said. "Where?" "Under its throat." Jin glanced toward the water. "So we cut it open." "Not yet," Yuna said. "If we rush it, it dives again." Jin smirked slightly. "You always did like waiting." Jin glanced at the dark water. "Hard to hit if it keeps diving. It only shows when it lunges." The Leviathan circled beneath the water again. Jin stepped forward. "I can force it out." Yuna shook her head. "You'll get dragged under." Jin raised an eyebrow. "You worried about me?" Yuna didn't answer. Diego shifted his shield. "You want me to hold it still?" Yuna looked at him. 3 seconds. Diego grinned. "That's plenty." The water exploded again. The Leviathan surged from the water. Diego planted his shield. The monster crashed into it. For a moment it worked. Then, the Leviathan twisted violently. The impact lifted Diego off his feet. His shield slammed backward. He hit the stone floor hard. The Leviathan lunged past him, straight toward Lily. Someone screamed. For a split second, the entire formation collapsed. "Diego! Left side!" He rolls and raises the shield again. "Jin, force its head up." Jin strikes the monster's jaw. The Leviathan rears back. Now the core is exposed. Yuna moves. "Now!" Diego shouted. Jin moved instantly. His sword struck across the Leviathan's neck. The armored scales cracked. Yuna stepped in from the opposite side. Her twin blades cut toward the glowing core beneath its throat. Behind them, Lily raised both hands. A golden barrier formed around Diego. The Leviathan's tail whipped through the air and slammed into the shield. The barrier shattered, but Diego didn't move. For a moment, everything moved perfectly. Shield, strike, blade, heal. The rhythm was effortless, unspoken, familiar. Yuna felt it immediately. The coordination, the timing, the way each of them moved without needing to speak. For a moment, it felt exactly like the old timeline, the four of them fighting side by side. Alive. The Leviathan roared and tried to pull away. "Again!" Yuna shouted. Diego pushed forward. The monster crashed into the shield once more. Jin leapt onto the creature's back. His sword plunged between the cracked scales. "Yuna, hold the triangle." "Jin, you worry too much." But he still moves back into position. The Leviathan shrieked. Yuna saw the glowing core clearly now. The core glowed beneath the Leviathan's throat. For one heartbeat, everything went still. Then Yuna struck. Both blades struck at the same time. The core shattered. A burst of blue light exploded from the monster's throat. The Leviathan thrashed violently. Then its massive body collapsed into the flooded temple. Water surged across the platform. The chamber slowly grew quiet. The blue glow faded from the creature's scales. The drowned Leviathan was dead. For several seconds, no one moved. Then a system message appeared. System message. Elite enemy defeated. Floor 6 progress increased. Temple access unlocked. The water stopped rising. A low grinding sound echoed through the ruins. Across the flooded chamber, the massive temple doors slowly began to open. Dark stairs descended deeper into the ancient structure. The survivors stared at the entrance. Someone exhaled slowly. "We actually killed that thing." Diego rested his shield against the stone floor. "Well," he said, "that was exciting." He glanced toward Yuna. "Nice plan." Then he looked at Jin. "Nice swing." Diego looked between them. "You two fight like you've done this before." Jin glanced at Yuna. "Something like that." Yuna sheathed her blades. "Next time try following the plan sooner." Jin smirked. "Next time make the plan faster." Jin wiped water from his blade. "You held it well." Diego laughed. "That's the job." Lily stepped forward beside them. "You're both hurt." Golden light spread across Diego's armor as she healed the damage. Yuna looked toward the temple stairs. The path forward was open again, but something inside her chest tightened. She remembered another battlefield, another monster, another moment when they had fought like this, and how it had ended. Not this time, she thought. The temple entrance waited in silence, and the tower still had many floors left to climb. Chapter 14. The Silent Paths. The temple stairs descended into darkness. Water dripped slowly from the stone above as the survivors stepped down from the flooded ruins. The air grew colder with every step. At the bottom of the stairs, the passage opened into a massive cavern. The floor disappeared into darkness. Narrow stone bridges stretched across deep chasms, connecting isolated platforms carved into the rock. The sound of dripping water echoed endlessly through the cavern. Then, the system message appeared. System message. Floor 7 reached. Dungeon type. Echo caverns. Warning. Excessive noise will attract predators. Objective. Reach the upper gate. The message faded. Several climbers frowned. Predators? Great, someone muttered. A group near the front stepped onto the first bridge. The stone creaked under their weight. The cavern seemed to amplify every small sound. Yuna stepped onto the bridge with the others. Her boots made almost no noise. Still, the echoes carried. Kai had not appeared yet. At the center of the bridge, a climber lifted his foot to take another step. A voice came from the darkness. "Don't!" Everyone froze. The The climber turned. "Who said that?" Silence. Then the climber scoffed and stepped forward anyway. The stone tile dropped. Spikes shot upward from the bridge with a violent metallic snap. The climber barely jumped backward in time. Several players stumbled in shock. A figure stepped out from the shadows on the nearby platform. Young, thin, no older than 18. Dark hair fell over his eyes as he crouched beside the trap tile. "Pressure plate," the boy said calmly. He tapped another stone beside it. "And this one." The boy stood and brushed dust from his hands. The cavern light revealed his face. "You step in the center," he added. "You fall." Diego blinked. "Well," he grinned, "that's useful." The boy glanced at them quietly. "You're loud." Jin folded his arms. "You've been watching us." The boy nodded. "Safer that way." Yuna studied him carefully. Young, but observant. His eyes were constantly moving, studying the floor, the bridges, the cavern walls. "You can read traps," she said. The boy shrugged slightly. "Most of them." Diego laughed and clapped him on the shoulder. "Good enough." He pointed ahead. "Lead the way, kid." The boy hesitated, then nodded once. "My name is Kai." He stepped onto the edge of the bridge. "Follow exactly where I step." The group obeyed immediately. Kai moved slowly across the bridge, placing his feet only on the outer stones. Everyone followed carefully behind. The cavern remained quiet, except for the occasional drip of water. Then a rock slipped from someone's boot. It fell into the chasm below. The sound echoed endlessly through the cavern. Everyone froze. Kai closed his eyes briefly. "Too loud." From somewhere deep in the cavern, a shrill screech echoed back. Then another, then dozens. Shapes began moving across the ceiling. Hundreds of dark wings unfolded in the shadows. Echo stalkers, bat-like creatures with elongated claws and pale eyes that glowed faintly in the darkness. They swarmed toward the sound. "Move," Kai said quietly. The group moved faster along the bridge. The echo stalkers shrieked as they dove toward the climbers. Jin's sword flashed. One creature fell from the air. Another clawed toward Lily. Diego stepped between them, shield raised. "Back!" The creature slammed against the shield and dropped into the chasm. More bats surged toward the bridge. "Keep moving," Yuna said. Kai reached the next platform and pointed toward another narrow bridge ahead. "Final path." The swarm grew louder. Hundreds of wings beat against the cavern air. A climber screamed as a bat slashed his arm. The scream echoed violently through the cave. The swarm doubled. Kai glanced behind them. "Run!" The team sprinted across the final bridge. Echo stalkers poured through the cavern behind them. Diego slowed near the rear of the group. His shield slammed into a diving creature. "Go!" Jin turned and cut two bats out of the air. "Keep moving." Kai reached the far platform. A glowing gate stood at the end of the cavern. "Here!" The team rushed through the final stretch. Yuna crossed the platform last. Diego followed immediately behind her, smashing the last attacking creatures away with his shield. The moment the final survivor stepped through the gate, the echo stalkers veered away. The cavern fell silent again. A system message appeared. System message. Floor 7 cleared. Gate to floor 8 unlocked. The survivors breathed out slowly. Several climbers collapsed onto the stone floor in exhaustion. Diego rested his shield against the wall. "Well," he said. "That was exciting." Jin sheathed his sword. "You call that exciting?" Nearby, Lily knelt beside an injured climber, healing the cuts left by the echo stalkers. The young scout stood quietly near the gate. Yuna watched Kai for a moment. In her previous life, she had climbed nearly the entire tower. She had met hundreds of climbers. But this boy, she had never seen him before. I don't remember him. That thought lingered in her mind. The future was already changing. Yuna walked over. You navigated the whole cavern alone? Kai shrugged slightly. Yeah. Yuna studied him. You didn't have a team? For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he looked toward the cavern they had just escaped. My chamber started with 200 people. His voice stayed calm. Floor 1 cut that in half. Floor 3 wolves took most of the rest. He paused. By the time I reached floor 6, Kai shrugged again. I was the only one left. Yuna asked him, You fought alone? Kai shakes his head. No, I avoided fights. He gestures toward the cavern. Watched where people died. Didn't step there. The room fell quiet. Diego scratched the back of his head. Well, he gestured toward their group. Looks like you've got a team now. Kai looked at him, then glanced at Yuna. If that's okay. Yuna nodded once. Stay with us. Kai gave a small nod. For the first time since they had met him, he looked slightly relieved. Behind them, the gate shimmered softly. The path to the next floor waited. The living maze was about to begin. Chapter 15. The Living Maze. The gate from floor 7 shimmered and dissolved. The team stepped forward. Stone walls rose on all sides. Tall, endless, ancient. They stood at the entrance of a vast labyrinth. Torches burned along the corridors, casting long shadows that shifted across the stone. The air felt strangely alive. Then, the system message appeared. System message. Floor 8 reached. Dungeon type. Living maze. Objective. Reach the central gate. Warning. Maze structure will periodically shift. Time limit, 60 minutes. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Diego exhaled slowly. I hate mazes. The ground rumbled. Other climbers moved through nearby corridors, some in organized teams, others alone. A deep, grinding sound echoed through the labyrinth. Several corridors shifted. Stone walls slid sideways like massive gears turning beneath the floor. The maze was moving. Great, Diego muttered. Kai crouched beside the stone floor, studying the seams between tiles. It's rotating sections, he said quietly. How often? Lily asked. Kai listened. The grinding stopped. 2 minutes, Yuna nodded. Then we move with the pattern. Jin was already looking down the corridor ahead. Left. Kai frowned slightly. We haven't checked that path yet. Jin shrugged. Dead end. Kai walked a few steps forward, peering down the passage. A moment later, he returned. He's right. Yuna looked at Jin. How did you know? Jin paused for half a second. Then he shrugged. Lucky guess. Yuna said nothing, but she watched him carefully. How did he know that? Kai pointed to the opposite corridor. That one will open in about 30 seconds. Move, Yuna said. The team entered the passage. Stone walls slowly shifted around them. Some corridors sealed, others opened. The maze was constantly changing. Behind them, a distant scream echoed through the labyrinth. Another climber must have been trapped. No one stopped. Kai raised his hand suddenly. Wait. Everyone froze. The wall beside them trembled. A section of stone slid open, revealing another corridor. Kai nodded. This way. They moved again. The maze grew quieter the deeper they went, until a heavy thud echoed somewhere ahead. Jin stopped. That wasn't a wall. Another thud, closer this time. Stone cracked. Something massive was moving through the labyrinth. Then a roar shook the corridor. The wall ahead exploded. A huge horned creature burst through the stone. The Minotaur Warden. Its body was massive, covered in dark muscle, and broken armor plates fused into its skin. Stone dust fell from its shoulders. Its glowing eyes locked onto the nearest climber. The Minotaur charged. Jin moved first. His sword flashed upward. The blade struck the creature's arm and deflected its swing. Diego stepped forward immediately. His shield slammed into the Minotaur's chest. "Big one!" he shouted. The creature roared and smashed its horns against the shield. The impact echoed through the maze. Lily raised her hands. Golden light spread across Diego's armor. Yuna circled the monster. "Jin!" "Already on it." Jin slid beneath the creature's swing and cut across its side. Blood sprayed across the stone floor. The Minotaur howled. But the roar triggered something worse. The maze began shifting again. Walls rumbled violently. Kai's eyes widened. "Wait!" A wall slid between him and the others. Stone slammed down. The corridor split in two. "Yuna!" Kai called. The Minotaur roared again. Jin stepped between it and the shifting wall. "Finish it!" Yuna didn't move. Her eyes flicked toward the closing corridor where Kai had vanished. The maze would reset soon. If they didn't move now, they could all get trapped. Diego shouted over the noise. "What's the call?" Yuna clenched her jaw. Then she turned toward the closing corridor. "Kai!" The wall slammed shut. For a split second, the maze went silent. Then the stone shifted again. Another corridor opened. Kai appeared on the other side. He was breathing fast, but alive. "Still here." Relief flickered across Lily's face. The Minotaur roared again. Jin stepped forward. "Enough!" His sword flashed. The blade struck the creature's neck. Once, twice. The Minotaur staggered. Diego slammed his shield forward. The creature lost balance. Yuna stepped in. Both blades struck the exposed throat. The Minotaur collapsed. Stone dust drifted slowly through the corridor. Kai exhaled. That was close. Yuna looked at him. "You okay?" He nodded. "Next shift in 20 seconds." The maze rumbled again. Kai pointed ahead. "Exit corridor will open after the next rotation." "Run," Yuna said. The team sprinted through the shifting passages. Walls slammed shut behind them. Corridors twisted. The labyrinth seemed to fight them every step of the way. Kai counted under his breath. 3, 2, 1. A wall slid open. The exit gate appeared. "Here!" They rushed forward. The maze roared behind them. The entire labyrinth began resetting. Diego shoved the last closing wall aside with his shield. Jin cut down the final stone obstruction. Yuna crossed the gate first. Kai, Lily, and a few climbers followed. Diego dove through the opening just as the maze sealed behind them. Several other climbers stumbled through nearby corridors at the same time. Different corridors from the maze all led to the same chamber. Silence returned. A system message appeared. System message. Floor 8 cleared. Gate to floor 9 unlocked. The stone gate ahead slowly opened. Light spilled across the chamber. Yuna stepped forward and stopped. Beyond the gate was not another dungeon. A massive battlefield stretched across the horizon. Stone platforms surrounded a central arena. Survivors were emerging from dozens of gates around the arena. some injured, some carrying teammates, but all of them staring toward the center of the battlefield, weapons drawn, waiting. Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. This floor isn't a dungeon. She looked toward the center of the arena. Something enormous was chained in the distance. It's a raid. The guardian of Floor 9 was waiting. Chapter 16. The Chained Titan. More climbers continued emerging from the gates. Some gathered into organized teams. Others simply stood in silence, staring at the chained giant. Within minutes, the battlefield filled with hundreds of survivors. A nervous murmur spread through the arena. Is that the boss? It's massive. Do we all have to fight that thing? The chained figure slowly began to move. The chains rattled. A deep metallic groan echoed across the battlefield. The giant in the center of the arena lifted its head. Stone cracked across its body as the titan slowly stood. Massive iron chains stretched from its arms and back, anchored to towering pillars around the arena. Dark energy pulsed through the chains like glowing veins. Then the system message appeared. System message. Guardian awakened. Barrier active. Destroy the anchor chains. The Titan of Chains opened its eyes. Cold blue light burned inside the hollow stone sockets. For a moment, the entire battlefield froze. Then the Titan stepped forward. Its foot slammed into the ground. The impact exploded outward in a violent shockwave. Several climbers near the front were thrown backward. One man wasn't fast enough. The Titan's foot came down again. The climber disappeared beneath it. The world fractured. Sound vanished. Yuna wasn't in the arena anymore. She stood in a quiet park. A young man sat on a bench, nervously adjusting the straps of a backpack. Across from him, a little boy ran through the grass holding a toy sword. "Dad, watch this!" The boy swung wildly. The father laughed. "Not bad." The boy grinned proudly. "Someday, I'll be strong like you." The father smiled. Then the memory shattered. The battlefield returned. Yuna staggered. Pain exploded behind her eyes. Her breathing became uneven. The Titan roared. Someone shouted nearby. "Move! Spread out!" A massive arm swept across the battlefield. Players scattered in every direction. Arrows streaked through the air. Spells slammed against the Titan's armor. Every attack bounced off harmlessly. Steel rang against black stone. Sparks scattered across the battlefield. Jin stepped forward anyway. Jin's sword flashed upward as he leapt toward the Titan's leg. The blade struck. Sparks burst across the armor. No damage. Jin landed and frowned slightly. Figures. The Titan moved. Its arms swept across the arena again. Too fast. Jin jumped back, but the shockwave still caught him. He slid several meters across the stone floor before regaining his footing. Nearby, Diego planted his shield. Brace! The Titan's next stomp hit like an earthquake. The shockwave slammed into Diego. For a moment, he held his ground. Then the force lifted him off his feet. Diego flew backward and crashed across the stone floor. "Diego!" Lily shouted. Golden light burst from her hands as she ran toward him. Healing energy spread across his armor. Diego groaned. "And that thing hits like a truck." Nearby, Kai wasn't watching the Titan. He was staring upward at the chains. Energy pulsed through them, once, twice. Kai narrowed his eyes. The chains. Yuna followed his gaze. Energy flowed through the chains directly into the Titan's body. Every pulse hardened the armor again. Understanding hit her instantly. "The chains aren't restraints," Diego looked up. "What?" "They're powering the barrier." Another pulse ran through the chains. The Titan's armor hardened again. Yuna stepped forward and shouted across the battlefield. "Break the chains!" Several climbers turned toward her. "The chains are feeding its barrier!" "Attack the pillars!" A nearby group rushed toward the closest pillar. Their weapons slammed against the stone base. Cracks spread slowly across the anchor. The Titan turned toward them. It raised its arm. "Scatter!" someone yelled. Too late. The Titan's arm smashed down. The ground shattered. 3 climbers were thrown across the arena, but the pillar cracked further. "Keep hitting it," someone shouted. More climbers rushed forward. Steel struck stone again and again. Jin stepped forward. His sword flashed. The blade struck the cracked pillar. A deep fracture spread through the structure. The chain above rattled violently. Yuna moved beside him. Both blades struck the same weakened point. The pillar groaned. Above them, the Titan raised its arm again. "Back!" Yuna shouted. Everyone scattered. The Titan's arm crashed into the pillar. Stone exploded outward. For a moment, the battlefield vanished in dust. Then, a loud metallic snap echoed across the arena. The chain broke. Massive links tore free from the pillar. The Titan staggered. For the first time since the battle began, the giant's body jerked backward. Across the battlefield, climbers froze. Then someone shouted, "The chain broke!" A system message appeared. System message. Anchor chain destroyed. Guardian barrier weakening. The Titan roared in fury. The remaining chains tightened violently. Energy surged through them. The giant turned toward the survivors near the broken pillar. Its eyes burned brighter. Yuna wiped blood from her temple. 5 chains remained. Across the battlefield, more climbers began rushing toward the remaining pillars. The raid had truly begun. But the Titan had also grown angrier. Yuna tightened her grip on her blades. "Next chain." Jin smirked slightly. "Good plan." Behind them, the Titan roared again. The real battle was only beginning. Chapter 17. Breaking the Titan. The Titan roared. The sound rolled across the battlefield like thunder. One chain already lay shattered across the arena floor. The broken pillar beside it still smoked from the impact. But the Guardian was far from weakening. Energy surged violently through the remaining chains. The Titan moved faster now. Its next stomp shattered the stone platform near the second pillar. Climbers scattered. Too slow. The shockwave lifted several fighters off their feet and hurled them across the battlefield. One body didn't move again. "Spread out!" someone shouted. Groups rushed toward the remaining pillars. Now everyone understood. Break the chains. That was the only way to kill it. Weapons struck the base of another anchor pillar. Steel rang against stone. Cracks spread slowly across the structure. The Titan turned. Its glowing eyes locked onto the group attacking the pillar. "Back!" a climber yelled. The Titan's arm came crashing down. Stone exploded outward. Half the attacking group was thrown across the arena, but the pillar was already weakened. Another climber slammed a hammer against the fracture. The pillar cracked. Jin appeared beside him. Jin swung once. His blade split the fracture open. The pillar collapsed. The chain snapped. A massive metallic crack echoed across the battlefield. The Titan staggered again. System message. Anchor chain destroyed. Guardian barrier weakening. A cheer broke out among nearby climbers. It didn't last long. The Titan roared in fury. Its next stomp collapsed an entire section of the arena floor. Stone shattered. Dust filled the air. Yuna steadied herself as the ground shook beneath her boots. Yuna wiped blood from her temple. 2 chains down. 2 remained. Across the battlefield, another group had already begun attacking a third pillar. Steel struck stone again and again. The Titan moved toward them. "Diego!" Yuna shouted. Diego stepped forward without hesitation. He planted his shield into the ground. The Titan's stomp crashed down. The shockwaves slammed into Diego like a wall of force. He slid backwards several meters, but he held. Several climbers behind him survived the blast. "Keep hitting it!" Diego roared. The pillar cracked, then split. The chain snapped free. System message: anchor chain destroyed. Guardian barrier weakening. The Titan staggered again. Now only one chain remained. For a moment, the giant stood completely still. Then the system message appeared. System message: Guardian enraged. Energy overload detected. The last chain began glowing violently. The Titan ripped one of the broken chains from the ground. Metal screeched as the giant swung it across the battlefield. The chain crashed into the arena floor. Stone exploded outward. Entire groups of climbers scattered. Some didn't make it in time. The battlefield turned into chaos. Pillars cracked. Debris rained down. A nearby pillar began collapsing. Yuna heard someone shout, "Move!" A climber stumbled near the falling debris. Another player grabbed his arm and shoved him away. "Run!" The pillar collapsed. Stone crashed down. The climber who had pushed the other away disappeared beneath the rubble. Yuna's vision fractured. The battlefield vanished. She stood in a small kitchen. Lantern light reflected softly off the table. Someone laughed across the room. A bowl of noodles steamed between two people. "Try it before it gets cold," a voice said. The moment froze. Then darkness swallowed everything. The vision shattered. Yuna staggered. Pain exploded through her skull. Fragments of another life echoed through her mind. A system message appeared in her vision. Memory fragments collected. 6 ability evolution detected memory. Echo unlocked. Her breathing grew uneven. The battlefield returned. Jin grabbed her arm. "Yuna," she pulled away. "I'm fine." He didn't argue, but his eyes lingered on the faint, strange shimmer around her blades. Across the battlefield, Kai shouted, "The last chain!" Several climbers rushed it at once. Weapons struck the base of the pillar. The Titan roared and charged toward them, but it was too late. The pillar cracked, then collapsed. The final chain snapped free. System message: anchor chain destroyed. Guardian barrier removed. Core vulnerability detected. The Titan roared in fury. Without the chains restraining it, the giant surged forward across the battlefield. The arena trembled beneath its steps. The Titan slammed its arm into the ground. For a brief moment, the armor plates across its chest opened. Energy vented from within. Kai's voice cut through the chaos. "The chest!" Yuna saw it, the glowing core. But the opening lasted barely 2 seconds. She turned to Jin. "I need an opening." He nodded. "Go." Jin charged forward. His blade struck the Titan's leg again and again. The giant turned toward him. Diego stepped forward and raised his shield as the Titan's next stomp came down. The shockwave slammed into him, but he held. Kai shouted from the battlefield. 3 seconds after the slam, Yuna ran. A broken chain hung from the Titan's shoulder, swinging wildly as the giant moved. The Titan whipped another chain across the battlefield. Memory echo flared. A sharp instinct screamed inside her mind. Yuna jumped. The chain slammed into the stone behind her. She grabbed the hanging chain. The Titan thrashed. The chain swung violently. Debris fell from above. Below her, Jin continued attacking the Titan's leg, keeping its attention away. "Move!" he shouted. The Titan slammed the ground again. The chest plates began opening. Kai's voice echoed across the arena. "Now!" Yuna climbed higher, then she pushed off the chain. For a moment, she hung in the air. The Titan's glowing core pulsed inside the open chest. Memory fragments shimmered around her blades like shattered glass. Faint silhouettes flickered behind her, echoes of lives remembered. Yuna drove both blades into the core. The Titan froze. Energy erupted from the wound. Cracks spread across the giant's body. Blinding light burst through the fractures. Then the stone Titan began to collapse. Its armor shattered like a breaking statue. Massive chains crashed across the battlefield with deafening force. The giant fell. Dust rolled across the arena. For a moment, the battlefield was completely silent. Then the system message appeared. System message. Guardian defeated. Floor 9 cleared. Settlement access unlocked. The arena gate opened slowly. Warm golden light spilled across the battlefield. For a moment, the survivors only saw lanterns. Thousands of them. Golden lights hanging from ropes stretched between tall wooden poles, filling the cavern like a glowing sky. Then the smells reached them. Rich, warm, unmistakable. Grilled meat sizzling over charcoal. Fresh bread baking somewhere deeper in the market. Sweet broth steaming from large iron pots. After days of damp stone, blood, and stale dungeon air, the smell of real food felt almost unreal. Some climbers simply stood there. Others laughed weakly in disbelief. Wooden buildings spread across the cavern beyond the gate. Market stalls lined wide stone streets. Merchants shouted over the noise of the crowd. Weapons clanged in a nearby forge. Hungry climbers gathered around cooking fires. For the first time since entering the tower, the air felt alive. A system message appeared quietly in the corner of their vision. System message. Safe zone detected. Combat restricted. Several climbers lowered their weapons immediately. One man dropped to his knees and started laughing. Nearby, Diego stared toward the food stalls. "Is that barbecue?" Lily smiled faintly. "I think so." Even Kai looked stunned. Jin studied the settlement quietly, but Yuna had already stopped walking. She knew this place. The lanterns, the streets, the noise of thousands of climbers gathering after surviving the early floors. Her chest tightened. In the previous timeline, everything had truly begun here. The alliances, the betrayals, the climb toward the 100th floor. Yuna looked out across the glowing market. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Lantern Market." A brief pause. Then she murmured softly to herself, "Where it all began. Last time." End of Arc 2. The future Yuna remembers is already breaking, and the tower isn't the only danger anymore. Because soon, survivors will begin to gather, and not all of them can be trusted. Arc 3 begins next. Subscribe to continue the story.